Hello, my lovely friends, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I would like to share a journal that I purchased. I was going to say that I purchased with you. A journal, comma, that I purchased, comma, with you. And it's the journal that I put in the thumbnail, and it's called No Worries. And I don't know, is there an actual author here? Now that I look at it, I don't know if it says if it's written by anybody in particular. I do not believe so. Bella Mente Press from 2020. You know what? This is odd. Let's see, there's an introduction. It's not nobody's named at the end of it. Huh, interesting. Is there something at the back? No. Anyways, I wanted to share this with you for a million reasons. And I've decided to make this quick video tonight because I don't really have anything else ready to do for a video for you. So before we get into this journal and why I want to share it with you, I just wanted to sort of I'm going to hopefully be back to normal next week. I'm finding I'm a little bit scattered, for lack of a better word. And I think I'm just a little burnt out from making all the Halloween journals. If I'm really honest, I think that I will never admit that I overdid it. But I made over 33 journals. And so, there's that. But anyways, I will get back to quote-unquote normal YouTubing next week because my goal really is to make 2 videos for you a week. But my brain just hasn't been in a place where I think that I have anything exceptionally interesting to share with you. I have had a couple requests about how I sew the journals, I don't have one here, how I sewed together the laminated cover, soft covered journals, and how I made the laminated covers themselves. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to work on that video next, and I will combine those two. Because it's one of those things where I know what I'm doing, and because I know what I'm doing, I just assume that you know what I'm doing, because we kind of have a tendency to think that everybody sort of has a rough idea of how we do what we do, because we're all in this sort of journal world together, and I regularly have to remind myself that there's a lot of people that don't know what I'm doing, and sometimes I don't know what I'm doing. So anyways, here we are today with me wanting to make a video, but not really 100% sure what to make a video about. But having said that, I was 100% sure that I wanted to share this with you. And so I thought it warranted a short video, all unto its own, because I really did want to talk about how much this helped me. So, first of all, I got it on Amazon in Canada, and I think it was $13. And I did check, and it's on Amazon in the US. I have not checked to see if it's on Amazon in the UK or in Australia or in the EU. My guess is yes, because this was just printed in a little town about an hour and a half away from me in Bolton, Ontario. So my guess is it's just sort of a print-on-demand thing that you can get just about anywhere. Okay, so why I bought this. I first bought a copy of this in July of 2021. Now, before Lucy and Sophie came to live with us, we had an amazing pussycat, and her name was Stella. And Stella was my muted calico. I'll put a picture of her here while I'm talking quickly about her. She was an absolute gem, and we loved her to absolute pieces. She was a rescue kitty that came from Texas, and someone we used to be friends with had found her abandoned at a trailer park, and nobody wanted her, so he brought her home to us, and we spent 15 wonderful, fabulous years together. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. Any of you out there that share your heart and your home and your family with furry family know how much we love them. I'm not going to cry. They're not just cats and dogs and birds. And rabbits and snakes and snails. They're family, and when we lose them, it is devastating. So Stella had autoimmune issues on and off since she turned about 6. So we were sort of used to having to take her to the vet, and she would go on doses of prednisone and blah, 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 blah. So there was a period in early summer of 2021 where she'd lost a fair amount of weight. And at this point, she was 15. And I just thought we were going to take her to the vet, and they were going to tell us that it was an autoimmune thing. And we'd get some medicine and things would be fine. And even though I knew intellectually that she was 15-ish, we didn't really know her age because she was rescued, right? So in the back of my mind, I knew that our time together was going to be fairly limited, but if I'm honest, I was also in somewhat of denial because I couldn't imagine life without her. So, when we took her for an appointment, and the vet had said right away, there's a lump in her neck, and we're going to do a little biopsy, but we're pretty sure that it's lymphoma. And if it is, there's nothing we can do. I mean, there's things that we can do, but. So, sure enough, it was lymphoma. And we got her back on some prednisone, and they said, you might have 2 months. And I just went into absolute shock and horror and meltdown. And it was it was so unexpected, right? It was so unexpected. So anyways, I was trying to figure out, I knew that I needed a strategy to cope, and because I needed to be strong for her, because I didn't want to be a mess, and I didn't want to be freaking out all the time, because animals pick up on that energy, and I didn't want whatever time that we had left together to be about me crying all the time and being super sad and super stressed. And so I did a little bit of searching around for journals. I didn't want to make myself a journal at that point. I just wanted something I could put in my hands and just start working in, to trying to work out the feelings that I was feeling, and the absolute shock and horror, and I knew that I had to come and face reality, that this is what was going on. And so that's when I came across this one. And this is a guided journal to help you calm anxiety, relieve stress, and practice positive thinking each day. Okay, so then I was like, well, I don't think we can go wrong with this one. Now, so this isn't a journal about grief. This isn't a journal, this is a very broad journal about just these things: anxiety, stress. But I'll tell you what, when I was looking on it, or no, when I was looking at it online, what I found, there was a page here. So they give you, I'll do a flip through with you. Okay, so this is what convinced me that this was a journal that I needed. So they have this thing called weekly fear setting, okay? And in the top part, it says, what am I worried about right now? And I had written time and time again that Stella would die before I was ready to say goodbye. So I knew right away what I was worried about, which was helpful. How likely is it for this to occur? Think of past experiences and write any examples here. And I was like, well, I know how likely it is. This is going to happen. And that's when I thought, you know what? I don't know, I'm how to articulate this. I don't want to say that I just needed to face reality, but I needed to be able to work through how I was going to make sense of my new reality at the time. And the other thing that drew me to this was in these boxes here. This is what is the worst case scenario? The next one underneath it, what is the best case scenario? And then the bottom one is, what is the likely case scenario? And for some reason, that really spoke to me. Like, I mean, really just got me in the heart. And then it says here, percentage of the chance of that happening. And in a weird way, when I could write, what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario was that I would wake up in the morning and come down here and she would have died in the night. And then, what are the chances of that happening? I wrote 100% every day because there was 100% chance that that's what could happen. Now that didn't happen. Spoiler alert, it didn't happen. But this gave me a place to write out and confront some of my absolute worst fears about about the time that we had together and about how Stella's passing would come and when. Okay, so then I'll just go through this. So there's a daily component, and they talk about it here. There's a weekly component, and then there's a monthly component. Okay. And then what was great about this, sorry, my light is a bit glary. Was so helpful for me was that everything was here. So in my time of stress and absolute terror and fear, I didn't have to think about journal prompts. I didn't have to think about what I should or shouldn't be writing in my journal. I just didn't have to think about how to do it. It was just here for me to do it. And that alone took so much pressure off of me. I have to say that I looked forward to coming in here every day and doing these exercises, even though it was painful. I learned a lot, and I learned things that I didn't expect to learn. Now, Stella wasn't the first kitty cat that we had to say goodbye to. The first cat that Milosh and I had together, her name was Kitty, and she had a hypothyroid issue for the last few years of her life. And, it was agonizing to try and figure out when to say goodbye. And in hindsight, we should have said goodbye to her at least a month before we did. And I was very selfish, and I can admit that freely. I was selfish because I loved her so much. I didn't want to be in a world without her because she was just such a sweet, wonderful kitty. She had brought me so much love and joy, and I really was very angry with myself after we said goodbye to Kitty, that I didn't do it sooner. And I'd made a promise to myself that when we had to make these decisions again, which are really excruciating decisions to make, that I would make sure that the cat's needs were before mine. Kitty was the first cat that we had to make that decision for, and I know that you only know what you know in the time, and you only know what your life experience tells you that you know. Right? You know what I mean? And so I really gave myself a hard time after Kitty's death. I was racked with incredible guilt. Oh my God, the guilt. And then there was some shame attached because I felt that I'd made her suffer. And so it took me 6 years to get ready to have another kitty in my life. And then Stella came. Sorry, this is a long-winded way of getting to a point. But the thing was, when we got the diagnosis and we knew that Stella was terminally ill, my big thing was, you've got to be ready. When she tells you it's time and she wants to leave this earth and go to the Rainbow Bridge, you've got to let her do that. And so for me, part of these exercises allowed me the space and the time and the room to get brave, for lack of a better word. It really helped me to get to a point that when she took a very sharp turn in December, and we knew within 24 hours that it was time to go. And I was able to call the vet and get an appointment almost immediately. But by that time, we had to take her to say see you later. I was ready. I was way more ready for that than I ever had imagined that I could have been. Even though, you know you're doing the right thing, you know that there's not going to be any more suffering or pain, that it's excruciating to have them leave you. Keep going. Okay. So the other thing that I really liked was they give you these self-care things here that you can do. And then you can fill in your own bits and pieces if you want. So just start small. Make your bed. Make your coffee. Take breaks from social media. Go for a walk. I mean, these are really no-brainer things, but certainly when you're in the moment and you're struggling to get your feet underneath you and to really, just some of these small things give you something to focus on, which is surprisingly helpful when you realize that you're having trouble focusing, right? And then the emotional cheat sheet. And it says, always remember that you are on a journey. You are not doing good or bad, and there will always be ups and downs. Refer to this cheat sheet anytime you need someone or something to lift your spirits. So, this was great. People I trust for support. My values. Activities I enjoy. Even if I didn't do them that day, I would write out things that I would love to do. And that would be, go thrifting or secondhand shopping, like going to the Goodwill. Making postcard art. And honestly, I would write the same things down day after day after day. It doesn't have to change. It's just an acknowledgement that I think shifts your brain and allows a little bit of maybe dopamine or serotonin to make its way into your brain so that you're not constantly feeling the weight and the heaviness of the stress, the anxiety, especially if you're in a situation where the ending is kind of unknown or the timing is unknown. That I found very helpful as well. Thing I love the most, and inevitably I wrote in here that we had time with Stella. Because I know people who have taken their beloved furry friend to the vet, and not come home with them. And it is, again, it is tragic. It is simply tragic. So, thing I loved the most was that we still had time together, and that I was going to be able to make the most of that time. And then favorite quotes. So that's daily. Then it talks about trigger sources. Log any emotional triggers that come to mind in each of these categories. So I didn't always fill all of this out. Depending on the day, what was going on. And then mindfulness matters. And then it take a few minutes to pause, reset your mind, clear out the clutter, and bring you back to the here and now. And I do have to say that we hear a lot of people talking about being in the present and living in the moment. And never before in my life had being in the present been as calming and as helpful and as cathartic as it was that summer when I could go out onto the back porch, because Stella loved nothing more than to lay in the sunshine in the hottest of days. Now I always made jokes. I was like, well, she was from Texas. She did love the heat. So I would go out onto the back porch and I would sit with her, and maybe I would talk to her, or maybe I'd just sit and read while she was sleeping, and I'd watch her chest rise and fall as she breathed, and her whiskers would twitch in the sunlight. Sometimes she'd open one eye and you could tell she was like, what are you staring at me like that for? I'd be like, I love you, go back to sleep. You know, and just those moments. And those moments not only were incredibly soothing for me at the time, but they were incredibly helpful after she left us, after she passed. Because I could refer back to those memories, and I would be sitting here and I'd be crying and I'd be, oh my God. Because grief is a strange animal. Grief is that's another conversation for another video. Grief comes in ways and attacks you in ways and resides within you in ways that we're not always fully prepared for, and we certainly don't always understand. So I'd be sitting down here and I would just have this overwhelming feeling of missing her, and so as I'm crying, but I would think about those moments on the back porch that summer, and I would think about just how soothing that time was with her. And it made all the difference, it made all the difference, because Stella passed on December the 20th, 2021, and we had the girls by March the 31st. So there was a shift, and I told Milos the day Stella passed, I need a year. I need at least a year. I can't do this again, and I'm not going to be able to share my heart with another furry friend for at least a year. So please don't ask. Please don't. I don't want to foster. I don't want to do anything. It hurts too much. Never say never, my friends. Anyhow, so these mindfulness things, I can't say enough about this book. I really can't. I mean, I know it's not going to be for everybody, but it talks about how to practice mindfulness. And I can't say that there's anything in this journal that maybe I hadn't really heard of before, but it was just in the way that it's been put together. So there is, I believe it's set up for 12 weeks. Yes, 12 weeks. Okay, so you get every day to work on the thing. So then here we have our moods, and then a thought, and then a feeling, and then a a thought log. What was on my mind today? So for me, it was like, I'm thinking about how much time do we have left together. I also had to really sit and think about the fact that we had already had almost 15 years together, 15 amazing years, and that her whole life and our relationship and all of the joy and the love and the laughter wasn't I wasn't going to allow it to be condensed into the last few weeks of her life. I needed her life to be more than just her diagnosis and then her death, right? So that was what was on my mind a lot, was that I needed to think about the fact that she was going to be more than just lymphoma and whatever time we had left. So then the next one is, how might I reframe those thoughts? So, overall, I was like, there's never enough time. When we lose somebody that we love, we always want more. Always. We always want more. But I had to come to terms with the fact that I wasn't going to have more time, that I needed to make the most of the time that we had, and that we had for her, a whole lifetime of joy and happiness and adventure. And that was really what I needed to focus on, was the big picture of her life, not just the diagnosis, right? And then at the bottom, it's trigger tracker. Did I do something today that triggered my anxiety, and how did I respond? So I found that very helpful. And then accomplishments and wins here. Oops, sorry. So this could have been anything. I didn't cry until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Stuff like that, right? Self-care, and then daily gratitude. So, did I sleep well? Did I get exercise? Did I get fresh air? Did I meditate? Did I eat nourishing foods? And then the daily gratitude. And, this could just have been, I was grateful for the fact that it was a sunny day, or, I heard from my friend Katrina or Katrine or whatever it was, right? And then something that made me happy today. And sometimes what I would do down here is I would take a picture of Stella on the back porch, and then I would print it out, like just a little tiny photo. And then I would have a picture of her in the sunshine or whatever she was doing, and that was enough to make me happy. So, that's... So that you get the days, that's each day. Right? Sorry. This is not a very eloquent way of showing you this journal. So you've got your days. And the other thing that I will say that I liked about this was that it's helping you find the good, but without telling you to be happy. Choose happiness. Be positive. Like, those things are important. But I'm sorry, when you're really stressed out and when something really shitty is happening to you, and I mean really shitty, pardon my French, when something is just ripping you out from the inside out, you know what? You can't be happy, and positivity is just not in the cards at that moment. You can't just be like, oh, It's more about just getting through it and doing the best you can. And some days you can be positive, and some days you just can't. You just can't. It's just not rainbows and unicorns and cupcakes, because it's false. It's fake. You don't feel like being positive. I'm not saying that you feel like being super duper terribly negative, but some days you just can't. I don't know how else to say it. You're digging deep, and you dig deep for the things that get you through the day, and sometimes being positive just isn't there. there's a ton of other emotions that you're trying to navigate and get through. And that's one of the reasons why I really liked this book, because it wasn't like, it's just asking you these really important questions. What was on your mind, for good or for bad? How might I reframe those thoughts? That was extremely helpful for me, because I realized that in order to get through this, and subsequently, I mean, this is the third time I've bought this book. Nothing bad's happening to me, don't worry. I just like the format. Perspective is everything. If you can have the strength and the courage and the tenacity to change your perspective when you're in a really stressful situation, that can make all the difference in the world. Like all of the difference. Perspective for me is an absolute game changer. And if I can shift my perspective into a place where I can make sense of things, where I feel like I'm not completely out of control, and that I can find some kind of rationale in what's going on, it's a game changer. So that's why I loved this. How might I refrain these thoughts? It was good. It was very good. And that's not something that I would have thought to do on my own, if I'm honest. If I was working in my journal, I just was too wrapped up in everything else to actually make a serious conscious effort to look at my perspective. Once I got into the habit of doing it, oh my God, it was like a miracle cure for me. And not every day, all day is great. Like some days you're like, oh, this perspective is really crappy. And sometimes you just have to sit with a crappy perspective. Sometimes you just have to wallow, and then you get through it and you get to the other side and you're like, okay, I did it. I'm past it. And then what did something trigger my anxiety today? And sure, and how did I respond? So then again, it gets you thinking about, okay, how did I respond? And was that good? Could I have done better? You know what I mean? Okay, sorry. I'm a little bit all over the place. So that's the week. Those are the days. Then you get to the week. Okay, and I showed you this a little bit already. What am I worried about right now? Well, at the time was, how long was Stella going to live? How likely is it for this to actually occur? Think of past experiences and write any examples here. So for me, I was like, well, when I was doing this in August, I knew that the medicine was making her feel better. It put her into a kind of remission. Okay, so I probably wasn't going to wake up and find that she'd passed away in the night. There was a good chance that it could occur, and then I just had to make peace with that. And I found that extremely helpful as well, that I could handle that. I could handle that. What is the worst case scenario? We know what that is. What is the best case scenario? The best case scenario is that I get more time with her and I get the chance to make the most of that time and to build a few more memories with her that would help carry me through the really dark days of shortly after her death with grief. And then habit tracker. So, you sort of just fill in, again, whether it's making sure that you stay hydrated, whether it's making sure that you write in this journal, whether it's making sure that you reach out to a friend, whether it's whatever it is, that you whatever it is. So that was handy. And then therapy reflections. And then this is if you're going to see a therapist. Topic we discussed, how do I feel about it, takeaways, and for next time. And then you start again all over again in week 2. So, like I said, this is for 12 weeks. So you get a page a day plus your weekly. Was there a monthly? No. So, like I said, I got one of these again this week. I'm finding that I'm having to make I want to make adjustments in how I deal with stress and how I hold stress in my body. I am a grinder of teeth in the night. I am a stomach clencher during the day. I don't consider myself somebody who is okay. I like to think that I'm not somebody who's super stressed, but I obviously have issues with stress because I feel the stress manifesting in my body, and I know that that's not very healthy for me. So I thought it might be kind of interesting to get this journal once again and go through it and work through maybe just trying to figure out what are some of the underlying stressors that I have and some of the not so underlying stressors that I have, and just see what comes out. I'm curious what is going to come out over the past 12 weeks. I mean, I'm pretty laid back as a rule, but like everybody else, there's stuff that simmers below the surface. There's stuff that's happened to me in the past that I know that I haven't dealt with. I was going to say in a healthy manner, but maybe I haven't dealt with at all. There's some family issues that need to be worked out in my mind. There's just stuff. My goodness, oh boy, there's always stuff, isn't there? There's always stuff. But anyways, I just thought, because this format resonated with me, and it was so easy, I didn't have to spend a ton of time writing, and it didn't really take away from the writing that I did or things that I did in my junk journal. This was just like another added benefit that I found to just really trying to manage my fears over Stella's diagnosis and her wondering when she was going to pass. And I think, just managing our fear about grief and loss overall is an enormous task. It is one of the hardest things that we do as human beings, is to navigate grief. We are terrified of grief. I know I am. I wasn't so much terrified of losing Stella, because I got to the point where I knew rationally that it was time. She was an old lady, and her job here on this earth was done. But I was terrified of how I would manage the waters of my grief. And just between you and me, I like to talk about my feelings a lot, but I'm not great at feeling my feelings. And I'm not great at letting things come through the cracks, so to speak. And so I was scared. I'm not going to lie. I was scared of what my grief would bring, and I was scared of what it would open up and what would come out. And I was afraid that a lot was going to come out and I might not be able to know how to deal with it. And I didn't want to feel crappy. I didn't want to feel sad. I didn't want to feel pain. I didn't want to feel for a while. And that was another reason, there's some light bulbs that go off when you're thinking, you know what? I just think I'm not going to feel my pain. Right? And then you're like, ding, 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 ding. Paging Dr. Freud. I think we should talk about you not wanting to feel your pain. And yeah, it's good I can laugh now. But excuse me, this I know I'm gushing a little bit about this book, this journal. This really helped. This really helped me get through, so that when Stella did pass, I was a mess, I'm not gonna lie. It was hard. You know, the thing about grief is that it's very unpredictable and it's messy as hell. And it leaves us feeling ridiculously vulnerable and raw. And you can't change it. You know, this is what I would say to Milos. Part of my problem was what I'd spent all this time being able to fix Stella when she got sick. I could give her the medicine and she'd be okay. And this time I couldn't fix it. And that left me feeling so helpless and hopeless and just raw. So doing the weekly mood things and what was on my mind today and what triggered me and what was my fear was, by the time it came to me actually being in grief and having said see you later to Stella, and those days and the weeks after she passed, I was in a much better frame of mind because I had allowed myself to feel those feelings and anticipate those feelings before the feelings came. We can't prepare ourselves for grief. You know, like there were a few times where I just couldn't believe how devastated I was, because I thought that I had intellectualized her death and her passing, and I was like, I'm gonna be fine. It's fine. I loved her, she loved me, it's fine. And there were moments where I'm like, I am so not fine. But then I went back to this, and yeah. You know, there's that quote, grief is love with nowhere to go. And it really is true. You know, that's the hard part, is that you have all of this stuff and you still want to give it. And that person and that little furry friend they're not there for us to give it to anymore. And it's extremely debilitating. But anyways, yeah. I don't know how to end this now. And I talked way longer than I thought I would. But anyhow, no worries. You know, depending on what is going on with you, if there's something that just working in your regular journal is maybe leaving you some, is leaving some holes in your journal work that, you know, you're like, I'm just not feeling, maybe try this. I mean, really, for the investment of $13, if you get it and you decide that you don't, it doesn't work for you, you know, you can, well, if it was me, I'd rip out some of these pages and just put them in a junk journal for myself later. But I did share this with a couple friends, and I have to say, some of my other girlfriends bought this, and they loved it too. I know I had a couple friends use it over COVID, and they found it really helpful because it was so structured. And I think that sometimes, just to wrap this up, sometimes what we need when we're journaling is structure. And we need to put things in boxes, which is why I loved this, because it literally allowed me to put things in boxes. Boy, that feels good sometimes. But because sometimes when we're working in our own journals, we don't have, for whatever reason, we just don't have the ability to put the things in the boxes the way that something like this can help us to do. So, yeah. Oh, boy, I don't know. I'm laughing because here I just thought I would tell you this little anecdote about why I really like this journal, and now it's 44 minutes in, and I've told you all about Stella and what happened. But anyways, you know, the thing is, of course, you all know it had a very happy ending because a friend of mine had sent me a link to Lucy, and that's how Lucy and Sophie came to live with us. a friend of mine was like, I know you're not ready. I know that you still miss Stella and you're still really sad and you're grieving and it's hard, but maybe just looking at this beautiful face will cheer you up. Aw, right on cue. Hi, Soph. So, I opened it up. I opened up the message that my friend Matt had sent me, and sure enough, there's Lucy's face, and she was so wonderful. And Milosh's favorite cats of all times are Siamese. You want to say hello while I tell the nice story about how we all met? Yeah? Well, but they need to see something besides your fur. And so we opened it up. Sorry, Milosh loves Siamese. I don't know what possessed me. Something just, there was a voice that said, ask. So I sent a note immediately and I said, hi, my name is Lisa. And I'd like to know if Lucy is still available to be adopted. And he wrote back immediately and said yes. And then there was some back and forth. And then he fessed up that there was 2 cats, and they were both Siamese, and it was Lucy and Sophie. And but they were going to try and adopt them out separately, which I couldn't. I was just like, oh my god, oh my! I like to think about it now. It's just, oh my god. But anyway, so when Milosh came home from work that night, I was like, I'm kind of been doing a thing. And I showed him the pictures, and he said, how fast can we go and get them? And so we made arrangements 2 days later to go and meet them. And it was love at first sight, I think, for everybody. And within a week, less than a week, the girls came here to live with us. But what's funny, and just as I round out this video, once we knew that the girls were coming to live with us, and it was a done deal. But that was at the end of March, and Stella had passed at the end of February, and I still had Stella's litter boxes in there, and I hadn't cleaned up, and I was just doing my thing, and so I'm like, oh my god, I've got to get this all cleaned up, and I got to get ready for the girls, and so I'm cleaning up in the laundry room, and I got the shop vac out, and I'm vacuuming up all the old litter, and I'm vacuuming and I'm crying at the same time, and I'm like, I really, really miss you. And I'm talking to Stella, right? And I'm like, I really, really miss you, and I can't believe that you're not here anymore, but I'm going to get 2 new friends to bring them home, and I'm not vacuuming up you because I want to make you go away or replace you, but I'm vacuuming up to make room for more love in the house. And anyhow, so, and I attribute my ability to make room in my heart as soon as I did for Lucy and Sophie, in part and parcel because of the work that I did in the journal. So sorry, I'm not looking in the right way here. So anyways, I'm going to leave it there. That's enough of me for today. So, no worries. A guided journal to help you calm anxiety, yes. Relieve stress, yes. And practice positive thinking each day. And if you don't like the idea of positive thinking, you can just see more helpful ways of finding and gaining perspective. So, thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing this time with me. Thank you for letting me come into your space and share my story. And I hope that you will find comfort somewhere in my anecdotes in this journal. My story with the girls and my story with Stella Bobella, my little warrior princess. And thanks for listening. Speak kindly to yourselves. Enjoy the journal process. And whatever you do, don't give up. Keep writing, keep digging, and keep growing. And I will talk to you soon. Mwah! Bye, everybody. Okay, what do you want to tell me? What do you want to tell me? Yes, I love you too. So I was thinking I could use that table to make a video. What do you think? Yeah, I guess that's a big solid no, huh? Okay.